So at a personal level, I've been adding the most to crypto I've added since November 2020. So this is not like buying call options. This is, just scaling in as I can, because the downside risk from here is, let's say, 30%. The upside is 10x. I'll take a 30 for one bet or whatever, it's the risk reward is now becoming super ludicrous.
Yeah.
So it dwarfs anything else.
Hey guys, welcome back to Library of Wealth. Today we have ex-hedge fund manager Raoul Pal on the current state of the market. Raoul Pal says that this next cycle will be institutions who will misjudge the volatility of the crypto market. He says that everyone who comes into these economic conditions will have to take it on the chin a few times to understand the variability of the space. He goes on to share the familiarity he has with the fluctuation of the industry, but he didn't understand S-curve moments. Let's listen to this interview with Raoul Pal as he talks about the Ethereum merge and how it will directly affect market conditions. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content we do here on this channel. Let's get right into the video.
What we've got is a network adoption model, as I say endlessly. So retail was the network adoption in 2017. These other players were the ones of this cycle. The next cycle is going to be the institutions. And they too,
the bigger
they too will misjudge the volatility. They may not have the leverage, but they may be the forced sellers. So everybody who comes into this market has to take it on the chin a couple of times before they learn the volatility of the space. I was lucky because I first bought Bitcoin in 2013 at $200, and it went up to 1,000. It then fell, but I had a long-term macro thesis, so I was looking at a 10-year bet or longer, and I'd written the first ever macro strategy piece for Bitcoin and said, listen, on a gold equivalent basis, it's worth about $1 million. So I said, it's trading at 200. This is clearly the best risk reward anybody's ever been given in history. And I said, let's assume I'm an idiot, which I am. Let's discount my $1 million target by 90%. So therefore the target's 100 grand. So there's me being as conservative as possible. And it's still at 200. It's still the best risk reward anybody's ever seen in their careers. So I took that bet. It went up 5x. Then it falls 84%. And I just say, well, fine. This is, I put the money in. I knew it was a call option and it has to have time to adopt. And then over time, I look back in 2017 and I was up 10x. And I stupidly got out too early because of the forking wars. I thought, I don't know what's going on. Without really understanding Lindy effects and S-curve moments and all of this stuff, I got out and then it went up another 10x and I felt like an idiot, and then it fell 80% again. And, once you've been through this a few times, you get to understand.
Pal says that the Ethereum merge is extremely important, but nobody in the crypto space understands what a benchmark yield is. Regardless, it will be a risk-free Ethereum yield that will be programmed in. Whether Ethereum goes up or down is a currency risk. To have a benchmark yield in the second largest digital currency when everybody wants to allocate to Web3 as a theme that isn't counter to the FUD or ESG that Bitcoin battles with is very inviting for institutions to allocate to. There is a currency risk, but if you've already made an allocation, then Ethereum becomes a massive bet.
I can't express how important this ETH merge is. Let's assume that it goes through fine. Let's assume. And that's not a certainty, but assume it does. I don't think anybody understands in the crypto space what it means to have a benchmark yield. And I'm going to use the expression again because people need to understand what I'm saying. In ETH, this will be a risk-free ETH yield, i.e. it is programmed into ETH itself. Now, whether ETH goes up or down, that's a different issue. That's currency risk. But to have a benchmark yield in the second largest cryptocurrency, when everybody wants to allocate over time to Web3 as a theme, that is not counter to the FUD of the ESG narrative that Bitcoin has to battle with, it becomes incredibly attractive for institutions to allocate. It also means that we can then price risk. As I said, emerging markets are all priced like treasuries plus 400 basis points, and junk bonds are quoted as spreads. I think everything's going to quote as a spread to ETH. And I've looked at this as well. I've gone through like Solana's yields versus ETH staking yield. They're basically volatility adjusted. So Solana's about 30% more volatile than ETH, and its yields is about 30% more. So you're kind of getting compensated for that. But it's going to give us benchmark abilities to understand this. And I think this is very important for the DeFi space and very important for institutional adoption. One of the reasons gold was not adopted by institutions is it had no yield. And many of the pension funds, they need to pay out pensioners and they need a yield. And ETH is going to be a very robust yield. Whatever it settles at, call it between 5 and 8%, whatever the number is, doesn't really matter. That's great. And it trades at a premium to treasuries. Now, yes, you've got currency risk, which is ETH. But if you've made the one allocation, which is, I want to get into Web3 or cryptocurrency, then ETH becomes an easy bet. So I think it's a really, really, really big deal. I'd always had, any time I've gone outside of Bitcoin and ETH, I've always just had an equally weighted basket that's small. Because I've always said this VC, we don't know what's going to succeed and what's going to fail. First, I want to address one thing, is that I got a lot of criticism for saying in a video, which was cut out of a longer video, oh yeah, Luna is a risk-free yield.
That's right. That's what it was.
The bit that was cut out was the bit that said, if you want to own that ecosystem, right? Domestic bonds of emerging markets almost never default because they print their own currency. What happened to Luna was identical what happened in the Argentina crisis and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is your payments came, but your payments were worthless, right? It's the owning in that currency that is the key part that everybody took away. And then later I then said, also, we need to be able to benchmark risks because 20% risk is not. You are the game here. You need to understand what risk you're taking. So that was all cut out. But, you know, it is part of the space. But I've always said that you don't have a right to network adoption.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have a right to risk, but always avoid hubris. So you might have said, I was hubristic when I bought calls in ETH. Sure, because I had a very strong view, but I had a defined risk reward in doing that. And I lost that bet. So that was 5% of my ETH, which is like a bid off a spread in ETH on a busy day. But when people are hubristic at scale, you tend to have to be nervous. Because usually when you think your shit smells of roses, you're going to get your face rubbed in it.
Pal says that anytime he's gone outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum, he's always carried a small, equally weighted basket of assets, because he never knows what's going to succeed and what will fail. He also says that domestic bonds of emerging markets will almost never default because they print their own currency. He states that what has happened to Terra Luna was comparable to the Argentina crisis because the payments came, but they had no value. Raoul Pal says that nobody has a right to network adoption or risk, but you must avoid hubris. People become overconfident, but they've actually made a big mistake. What do you guys think about Raoul Pal's take on the Ethereum merge? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Library of Wealth. We'll see you in the next video.